And welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Tom Fornelli. I'm Chip Patterson. You see those sirens. Emergency pod, double emergency pod number 1. Tom Herman out at Texas. News breaking here on Saturday, January 2nd, just before noon. Tom, you and I were on CBS Sports HQ handing out these reckless January 2nd bowl picks, just having ourselves a good old time with Joe Musso. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh crap, this is big news. You know, we gotta like strap our serious caps on to get some instant reaction as we're like crafting our reaction and talking about it to Tom Herman being out. Then Steve Sarkisian, news breaks. Dennis Dodd confirms it. This feels like we've been through a real whirlwind in the last hour.
I'm tired, and like it's not even noon here yet. Yeah, it's funny because we did the picks segment, and then the producers are like, all right, after the segment ends, they're like, all right, gentlemen, we're going to keep you to come back to do the breaking news, and it's like, cool. So what's the breaking news? But yeah, I said on HQ, and I look at this now, like I'm surprised, but at the same time, can you ever really be surprised by this in college football in general, and then especially when it comes to a program like Texas to make this move? Because 3 weeks ago, Chris Del Conte put out that vote of confidence in which he said Tom Herman is our coach, but he never said Tom Herman was going to be back for 2021. And the fact that he left that out always kind of kept kept that flag up there, just kept you aware of to pay attention to what's going on. But still, like, enough time had passed, and we knew that Urban Meyer, who we talked about on this show all season long as somebody that maybe they were targeting to maybe replace Herman with, we knew he wasn't taking the job. And the thought was kind of like, okay, who's the other big name out there that's going to suddenly become available that they're going to make the move and pull the trigger on Herman? And I didn't think of one. I certainly didn't think Steve Sarkisian was the big enough name. So like watching them go through the last few weeks and then watching them kick Colorado's butt in the bowl game to kind of build the quote unquote momentum heading into next season, I thought, all right, Tom's going to get one more year and he's going to have a chance to build on it with Casey Thompson as his quarterback, who played really well against Colorado, Bijan Robinson, who really came on strong at the end of the season. But the magic Saban dust apparently proved to be too much, because, it's not a coincidence that the day after Alabama beats Notre Dame in its semifinal game, suddenly Sark's available and able to be announced as the new head coach, or at least, to be reported as the head coach. And it is confusing to me in the sense that Tom Herman won 64% of his games at Texas, and that wasn't good enough. And I understand that Texas wants to compete for Big 12 titles. They want to compete for playoff berths. So how is Steve Sarkisian, a guy who's never won 10 games in a season while being at either Washington or USC, another blue blood premier type of program, who has only won 57% of his games as a head coach, the kind of clear and obvious upgrade over Tom Herman in Austin?
See, you're looking at it all wrong. Sark's just the number one candidate, right? Like, cause it was Auburn, everyone put Steve Sarkisian on the candidates list. It was South Carolina. Everyone put Steve Sarkisian on the candidates list. Basically any job that opened up, it had that like, oh, and don't forget about Steve Sarkisian, the Broyles Award finalist, has done a fantastic job with Alabama's offense. So Tua to Mac Jones, like you could copy and paste this, it's like, oh, he's a top candidate. There was a lot of sort of the way that Matt Campbell was last hiring cycle. Everyone's like, oh yeah, or you could just go get Matt Campbell. Sark was that coach. The fact that Sark was so clearly a lock for Texas, and I say that not from any back reporting, but just from the timing of this, because the indication that Chris Del Conte, you mentioned the statement and the vote of confidence that he had, but even speaking to some reporters in some of the like end of semester and end of season little scrums that they were having around the bowl games, he was, letting it be known that they weren't just going to fire Tom Herman, do a national search and walk into this, just sort of be like, well, let's just go figure it out and see what happens. They were only going to make a move at head coach unless they knew who they were going to get. They were all excited about it. And that's Steve Sarkisian. Like, I mean, like what Sark has done with Alabama's offense has been awesome. And I talked about it before, but I think that he deserves a real hat tip for some of the ways that he's been able to allow all of those touches to be spread around and be so effective and be so ruthlessly efficient. The play calling's been good. The game planning's been good, but you mentioned what the Texas job entails. And now I'm like, all right, well, who is going to have Sark's back? Like, who else is going to be around him to be able to navigate all of that that happens in Austin? And I don't know what Texas's pitch was to Sark, but as sitting here, I just think that Texas is probably one of those jobs that Sark's like, yeah, no, okay, cool, I'm in. I mean, if you're Steve Sarkisian, Texas calls, you say yes before the sentence, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Or you say, well, give me a day to think about it, and then you've already made up your mind, but you want to play a little hard to get, maybe get a few extra million tossed out of the contract. But now this is nothing to do like with Sarkeesian as an offensive mind, because I think he's a brilliant offensive mind. Like he's clearly at Alabama. He's got all world talent, and that's going to make any coach look better. But I think that the way they design things and that they scheme things to get their guys who, the ball's going to Devontae Smith, and yet they still know how to get Devontae Smith open over and over again. That's a good football coach. And I think that he's bringing that. And I think that if you're Texas and you're looking at your biggest rival in Oklahoma and Lincoln Riley and his ability to call plays and his ability to scheme offenses to put his team in the best position, you're saying to yourself, that's what we thought we were getting it with Tom Herman. We haven't quite seen that. We need to get somebody that can do that alongside Lincoln Riley. And maybe you think Sarkeesian is that. But like you hinted at, and like we've talked about, this Texas job is not just a football coach's job. You have to be the president of Texas athletics. You have to be the politician. You have to shake everybody's hands, because there are a lot of people involved in this program who are involved both with their hearts and with their wallets, and they all feel like they're due something. And so if you're the head coach of this program, you have to take care of all that while you have to recruit and put together a talented roster, while you have to prepare to get your team ready to play every week. And I don't know if Sark is that type of person to do it. And to be blunt, I kind of worry about him in this spot, because we know why he left USC. We know why that didn't work out. And we know he's gotten his life back together, and he's done a great job at Alabama. But now you're putting yourself back in a position where there's going to be a lot of pressure on you. So I think you're right. They do have to have somebody there. He's going to have a security blanket of somebody there to make sure that, not everything is on him. They do need, maybe Chris Del Conte takes on a much larger role and plays that kind of politician role and just lets Sark coach. But of course, if Chris Del Conte and any other AD in Texas might have done that for Tom Herman, maybe they're not in this position to begin with. So I don't know. I hope it works out well for him, because I think that college football is more fun when Texas is good, even though the Texas is back jokes and all that kind of stuff are fun. I think it's better for the sport when all the blue bloods and all the power programs are all capable of winning their conference and competing for national titles. It makes everything that much more enjoyable. And it's just, like the rising tide lifts all boats. So I want Texas to be good. I can't sit here today with this news still fresh in my mind and say, oh yeah, this is a home run hire. This was a no doubter. And
so the Tom Herman side of things, he makes a change at offensive coordinator, makes a change at defensive coordinator. Like in that, normally, when we just sort of look at the story, like the storybook of all the college football head coaches, especially at power programs when they're high expectations, like that's your desperation move, right? Like that is I know something's wrong, and now I've got to break these relationships, bring in some new blood, shake things up. And like in defense of Texas did not look good. They did not look well prepared. They did not look particularly well coached. The staff shakeups did not, to me, show a very different Longhorns team than what we saw a year ago, for example. So just sort of taking it at face value, not looking at the Sarkeesian side of things, Texas deciding to make a change from Tom Herman and from this coaching staff, with everything that, as ugly as it looked, just sort of from the outside, in the middle of the season, we thought he was toast, and we thought this was it. So while the timing is surprising, I did not see it coming. And while the replacement in Steve Sarkisian is worth a very interesting debate that will continue until the team takes the field, just alone, Texas deciding to move on from Tom Herman, I can understand why Texas wanted to do that.
Yeah, I understand. Like the timing's weird. We knew we had a very strong inkling that this could be coming all year long. It's not surprising to me that Tom Herman got fired. The timing is a surprise, and the replacement is a surprise.
Any final thoughts or expectations coming out of this?
It'll be interesting to see what Sark's plan is with Alabama still having one game left. It's kind of a big game too, so I don't know if they're going to go full Lane Kiffin mode on it. Who, like you mentioned in HQ, who Sark replaced as the play caller at Alabama when Kiffin left to go take the FAU job. But I do think Sark probably sticks around for the next 9 days to finish this thing out before moving on to Texas, because the timing's already off on the hire, so it's not like 9 additional days are really going to throw anything out of whack. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with Tom Herman going forward. I think he's going to get a head coaching job. And like I mentioned on HQ, I think that getting fired by Texas in the long run, while it doesn't feel like it now for him, I'm sure, might be the best thing that's ever happened to Tom Herman, because maybe he's going to get another job and just be allowed to be a football coach.
Couple notes here from Coca. Steve Sarkisian, the 12th person from one of Nick Saban's Alabama staffs to move on to get an FBS head coaching job. The Magic Saban dust is absolutely real.
And they've all gone on to win national titles.
And Texas and Alabama are set to play each other in 2022 and 2023. So I expect that we will get to see Nick Saban against an assistant, probably beating that assistant yet again. And then finally,
Alabama.
My expectation is that Steve Sarkisian will coach, because when Lane Kiffin left, he was going to FAU. I think that it is good recruiting for Steve Sarkisian to be in that national championship game on the sideline, guiding Mac Jones, Devonta Smith, and being a part of this record-setting Alabama offense all the way through to what I think will be a national championship win.
You just see Sark on the sideline after a touchdown pass on his phone, texting some recruit like,
that
could be us, but you playing.
He's changing all the play calls to hook 'em horns, right? Like, just so that we can get photos of him. We need to get a photo of him in his like Alabama smock, but he holds up like the play call of a 2, and then they can Photoshop out the A and just put in the Bevo. It'll be perfect.
Yeah.
He is Tom Fernell. You can follow him on Twitter at Tom Fernell. You can follow me at Chip_Patterson. Tom, thank you very much.
Thank you.